Well, Mike, thank you very much for coming today. I appreciate it. I've been excited for this for a little while, ever since I reached out to you. So, tell me a little bit about how you got into law enforcement.
I think it started like way when I was a very young kid. We had one police officer in town,
In your local town.
in our local town,
Yeah.
and I think we all know him,
Sure.
a monster of a man,
Yes.
and he just had a heart of gold.
Yes.
And I think I saw the good things he would do, and not being from a well-to-do family
Sure.
or anything,
Right.
and
That
knowing
you weren't from
I
a
wasn't.
well-to-do family.
Right.
So maybe would we go as far as maybe some poverty?
Yeah,
Were you at poverty growing up?
I would say so.
So when you had a big teddy bear of a chief that you probably interacted with?
Yeah.
That's
Yep,
what you're,
and he was on the local fire department. Back then, they would always do like, was it Thanksgiving turkeys or
Oh,
Christmas
sure,
turkeys?
sure.
And he always made sure we got
Aw.
something. And, and then once I got to know him and once I got further into law enforcement and learning his story, it just really connected. And it was kind of funny. I had just, 2 weeks ago, I had seen him uptown in
Yeah.
one of the stores. So
ran into each other,
Yeah.
and now you're on this side of the story where you're both out of it.
we're both out.
He
Yep,
retired.
yep.
So, is it fair to say that your interest or your appreciation, maybe that's the word I should say, your appreciation for law enforcement, given the circumstances that you were involved in or grew up in, maybe perhaps led you to that, in that direction?
The helping people.
Oh, sure.
Everybody always, it's a maybe a cliche. Why are you a cop? Well, I want to help people. But maybe with me, there was more to it of actually wanting to help people. And I still see people all the time. Are you coming back? No, I'm done.
Do you technically say that you're retired?
I do. I say
Okay.
I'm retired law
Okay.
enforcement.
Okay.
But I still work.
Sure,
Yeah.
right, outside of law
Yep.
enforcement.
I've got a lot of people that I still know, they have countdown timers on their phones. When they've turned 55, they're done. I doubt they go a day later. Even the young guys know. They used to ride with me when I was working, when they were in high school. They're ready to retire. They're ready to get out.
You're not the only one that says that. I hear that frequently, across the board in, be it probation,
Yep.
all the way through. I wonder why that is, just highly stressful, just the contacts perhaps?
Well, it could be part of the job, but where we live and in our communities where we live, you're never off. You're always you are that person.
I understand.
And
So if you and your family want to go to the baseball game, the local baseball game, you're still going to be approached. Even if you're not in uniform, you're still going to be approached as
Correct.
like, okay, what do you think of this? I'm going through this, something like that. So that's what you mean when
Yep,
you say you're never off duty?
one incident, we as a family we went bowling, and so my 4 kids, my wife, we were in there bowling, and it was the town where I was the chief in, and we had one of the guys that was working. He came in that day to just
Sure.
sit and talk.
Yeah.
And I think we were sitting there having probably pizza and pop or whatever, and the kids were bowling, and a gal come in and she just started going off on me.
Oh,
I
like a personal attack on you? Or,
work stuff, but I think she was under the influence at the time as well.
okay.
And so
And now you have your children there?
yes, and my wife and stuff, and so I'm like, I'm not working. Come in Monday, we'll deal with it then. But she just went lit up, and one was a conservation officer that was there talking with us, and one of my guys, and my kids knew the universal when all growing
go.
up. So they know, they drop their stuff, they get their
Okay,
shoes on,
sure.
and out the door we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
And it's just, they've known that their whole life.
Yeah,
So,
yep, something that the family has to be aware of.
Oh,
and,
yes. Yep.
I mean, from as little as they can start to understand it, you
Yep.
have to talk to them about
Yep.
it and explain things that this could.
And we
happen.
never hid anything from our kids.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, they knew this was our lifestyle. You know, we've got, there's a movie where the guy's going through the checkout line at the grocery store and his pager goes off because he's got a SWAT call. Well, that's happened to us. I mean,
Okay.
we've
Yep.
been shopping,
Sure.
pager goes off, oh, SWAT call, we gotta go.
Yep.
One night we were going out with friends. They showed up at our house. We were on the deck. Both our pagers go off.
Gotta go.
You girls have fun.
Yep,
We'll see
yep.
you later.
Well, and you, your wife is a nurse.
Yes.
As well. So that's another occupation. You might not get a page, but it's another one that's really difficult to kind of, stop and start, let go.
Yep.
You're gonna kind of bring some of that stuff home.
Yep. And the type of nursing she's in now is always something different.
Okay.
So it's not the same old, same old.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something going on.
Sure, yeah. So can you tell me, so now, so this is how, when you were younger, you wanted to see maybe some justice. You wanted to see that you could help some people. So that's what brought you into it. So when, how old were you when you actually took your first job? And then when I say like a job, is that like your first, like, you got to take an oath? Is that correct?
Yep.
That you're going to
Yep.
protect?
So I first got hired, I believe it was 99.
Okay,
I started as a jailer dispatcher and a part-time deputy.
okay.
And then,
And you were like, this is it.
Yeah.
I love it. This is what
Yep.
you
Yep.
were all ready to do what you were trained to do, and you were happy. That was.
yeah, it was great. I was happy with what I was doing. I had a summer job. Guy from our local church owns a company, and he knew I was going into law enforcement. I'd already graduated college and everything, and he's like, I told him it might be, a year, it might be a couple months.
Sure.
And he took me on, and I worked with him. He's a great guy. I still see him all the time.
Sure.
Now the industry I'm in now, we see each other a lot.
Sure. Yep. So just in the intern during that time, he helped you
Yep.
get through on that
Yep.
time. Yeah. So you get into the job, you're loving what you do, and we all know in law enforcement, it's fun and games until
Something happens.
Until something happens.
Yeah.
And there's a darker side to that law enforcement field. And I personally do have a few friends in law enforcement, and not that they've shared stories with me, but I get the gist of how not only demanding, but also sometimes life-changing situations can happen.
Or borderline,
Or borderline.
almost happening.
Oh, sure. Okay, sure, right on the edge all the time.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready for that
Yeah.
all the time.
Or you get called to certain incidences, and one bullet would have moved over a foot. And so we're in a rural community. So our law enforcement here, for the most part, we handle everything. You get the call, you catch it, you clean it. So
You catch it, you clean it. Okay, I've never heard that one.
Yep.
Okay, all
so
right, yeah.
so you get the call,
Yep.
you do the investigation, you do everything.
Follow through
and
all the way to the end.
It
Okay.
goes to the county attorney
Yep.
or city attorney, whatever
Yep.
it be. So yeah, we don't get to hand off our stuff, a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger cases now, we've got state agencies, the counties have investigators, but a lot of stuff, we're small enough where you run the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Right, yep, from start to finish.
Yep.
So that can be cumbersome.
Trying to find time sometimes. Like in the summer, we get a lot of people here, and so your caseload goes way up. You're working, or back in the day, we were working when you're not working. You're
Sure, yeah.
doing reports at home, just because you wanted to get it done. So then you could go out and play on
Sure.
your next shift.
Sure, oh, sure, yeah.
And you weren't stuck in the office.
Right, yeah.
I know we've had some parties back in the day where, you just take names and date of birth, addresses, write them down on a notepad and their breath content, and you go home and you fill out all the tickets at home.
Oh, sure. Okay. So like when you
Like
say
when you've got 100 kids.
yeah, when you say parties that you had to bust.
Yes.
Is that the
Yeah,
word?
yeah,
Okay.
that we
I'm
busted,
thinking
yes.
back of when I used
Yeah.
yeah, talk about that stuff. So you would get the info and then go home and
Yep, do it at home and then
Sure, or
mail
back
out
at
the
the office.
citations from the office and stuff.
Okay.
Because it was, you've just got so many kids there that, and they're from one of the parties that we busted, they're from a very large community to the west of us. And it was their senior keg.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're about an hour away. Come out to Podunk nowhere. And,
Wow. Yeah.
yep. But I got to meet their sheriff then after that.
Oh,
Really
all right.
nice guy.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That would be kind of it's like herding cats, I would think, when you have a bunch of teenage drunk kids that are just scattered, I'm sure, everywhere. And then like the one that gets caught is probably the one that,
Yeah, and
maybe wasn't.
there's responsible ones there, but like back in the day, don't do it again, go home. Well, not
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
there's
Liability.
yep, all of that. You're going to get in trouble
Sure.
for
Yeah.
letting them off.
Well, and you got to think before you make choices, and that's part of growing up too in that stage of life. I mean, you make choices, if it's not too terrible bad, it doesn't affect,
Right.
too much
And
down the
I
road.
think, if you explain it in the future of something you did stupid as a kid, I personally, okay, I get it. You were a kid, you were dumb.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll hire you.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if everybody based decisions on some of the mistakes that I've made over my life, I'd be in trouble. So we are always evolving. We're always learning. We're always developing. So, really good kids can make some really bad choices, and it can affect them. And they got to work through that stuff. So, you mentioned, like I can't even imagine what it must do to you when you have a bullet that missed you, like not that it happened to you, or did it happen
Yeah, it's happened.
specifically
Yep.
a foot away?
I couldn't tell you, it was dark. The kid had 2 rifles and he was shooting at me, one in each arm.
Mike, how do you even, you're just on emotion at that time, on adrenaline at that time? How do you handle something like that?
Took some days off.
Okay. Okay.
The
Is that mandatory? I don't mean to cut you
back
off.
then, no,
It wasn't mandatory?
No.
You said, I'm
no.
thinking that.
This is 26 years ago.
Okay.
Or more. That wasn't the part that still bugs me. It's the part that I knew the kid really well. And he was able to get into the house and then he took his own life. That's the hard part.
That is terrible.
Yep.
That is so terrible.
And he was a good kid.
And he was a good kid.
I thought he was.
Well, he just made, back to the thing, we all make choices. Some are, that was ultimately the worst decision at that time. So that affected you on so many levels because you were fighting for your life, and then you had to flip that script
Yep.
and then help him.
And then I also had a rider with me that night.
How old were you at that time when that happened?
I think that was an #01. So,
You never forget that.
no. That, every
Never.
day. Every day.
How, every day, how do you, so when you are like debriefing, how do you, like when you have a circumstance where you need some help, do you know when you need that help, or how do you know that you need help? Is there some criteria that they ask or check marks? Because I'm thinking about somebody that's in a position right now that's, maybe they've been in it for maybe 10 years and they've never had any big traumatic event happen, but they've had a lot of them where they're, like you said, they're on this, right at the edge. And then something's not sitting right with them and they don't know what it is. Is there any criteria that somebody should be kind of looking at, or like check marks, or?
So, back when I was working, we didn't have a lot of the debriefings after critical incidents and things like
Wow.
that. But now, I want to say within the last 10, 15 years, probably, maybe even more, you've seen more, and it might have been with the bigger departments where, yes, they have critical incident debriefings and things like that. But there's also some officers will go and they're not going to say a word. They don't want to talk about it. They bottle it up. You know, I've heard of some officers taking more risks, going to calls, driving faster, that kind of stuff. You know, just being more reckless because they're at the point where I don't care what happens to me. You know,
Wow.
where
Wow.
and then they just finally I'm done. And but you know, this I want to say some of the very strong stoic officers that I know and respect very well don't talk.
Okay.
You know, unless, you know, some of us, we get together, throw a couple beers back, then stories start flying. You know, but we're all having a good time then.
Do you have a tendency to talk about the more funnier stories?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Tell me, now we're going to shift a little bit here. There's got to be something, you know, something that stands out in your career that still makes you kind of like chuckle or, you know, belly laugh to this day that you encountered. I mean, I have to believe there's got to be something.
So I was a deputy for a county, one of our neighboring counties at the time, and we were working the local fair. And our sheriff was out with us, and we get a call, or I got the call, that somebody hit Sasquatch
What? Hit?
with a vehicle.
They hit Sasquatch?
Hit Sasquatch, and it took off running.
Okay.
So, you know, we're all at the fair, and we're like, yeah, whatever, you know, and so I get my car, I'm headed over there, and I'm getting updates that now they hear it on the roof of their house that they're at.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, well, maybe they did hit something, you know?
Okay.
So I'm going there, and they just keep giving updates, and I'm like, I pulled over. I grabbed my rifle out of the trunk because we
Okay,
didn't.
because now it's getting serious.
Yeah,
This is not funny anymore.
we didn't have rifle racks in our squads at the time, so I pull over, and I get there, and the gal I hit Sasquatch. I'm like, what? And I'm looking around. I'm walking around the house, and dispatch is doing status checks on me, but I had my lapel mic here at the time, and I didn't turn my radio up.
Okay. So you're on site.
I'm on
You're the
scene.
first officer
Yep.
there.
I was the only one going because we all know this is bogus. Yeah.
Probably. Okay. But you were serious though, because you stopped and pulled over and got the rifle.
Yeah.
So you were taking it
So
serious,
I'm
but
thinking, I'm going to shoot something. You know, I don't know if there's a mountain lion or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
But you know, these people are like, they honestly believe that she hit Sasquatch.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's on the roof of the house.
Okay.
And so they're doing status checks, and nothing's coming. I'm not answering. So
Because your volume is turned way down. You're answering, but they're
I
not.
don't hear them. I don't hear them calling me
Oh, okay. Okay.
because I'm just looking.
Okay.
So my sheriff gets in his car and he's coming over, but he was the kind of guy that he would give us the better equipment and he would keep the other stuff. So he had this old radio in his car, and he's turning up the radio, and they're doing status checks and not getting anything. And then one of the local PD guys.
So they think maybe perhaps Sasquatch had taken you out.
Oh,
You're
just
gone.
wait,
Okay.
just wait.
Okay.
So the sheriff's coming over, and one of the PD guys, all of a sudden you hear over the radio, it's, the sheriff thought I was getting eaten by it. He goes, Mikey's getting eaten by Sasquatch.
Oh my gosh! So then things got really serious.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, at that time, then
Well,
I
what was-
heard it.
Okay,
I
what-
heard the radio, so I turned up. I'm fine. Everything's, you know, it's all good to go here. We got a hold of the local game warden, and turns out, I didn't know at the time, but if you hit a bear and you injure its front leg, it can take off running.
Okay.
So she might have hit a bear.
Okay. So she had hit something. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're thinking it's a bear, took off running, but that's it, you know, and
Well,
the sheriff, his name, we have the same name, so I was always called Mikey.
Mikey. Okay.
And
yeah.
he's like, I thought Mikey was getting eaten by Sasquatch. And
So the legacy is still kind of floating around out there yet that,
so now I'm a Sasquatch. I love Sasquatch. I've got my daughter. She's bought me Sasquatch signs. I've got Sasquatch T-shirts, hats. My office right now, I have a Sasquatch sign in there. She was at a tractor show this last weekend. She come home with another Sasquatch sign for Dad.
so it's just kind of, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
We love it.
Yep. That's kind of cool that you got that call.
Yeah. It's just kind of gone from there.
Sure.
You know, and I still got buddies that we talk about it.
Sure, yeah.
That were actually working with me.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Well, it's funny now, but I bet you at the time that there was a little like.
Well, and I didn't know.
Right,
It was the
right.
sheriff
Yeah,
that was coming
yeah,
over to back me
yeah,
up. And,
yeah.
you know, the guys, you know, I've got one buddy, I talk to him every Monday or Tuesday night.
Okay.
He's out of law enforcement too. And
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while we bring up the story.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mikey with the Sasquatch.
yep, yeah, it's good.
That is a cute story. I have to believe, you know, there's got to be some.
So next time you drive by the house, I got to remember to get to town and buy a sheet of plywood. I'm gonna put a Sasquatch in my woods.
Yeah. Cut it out of the plywood.
Yep,
I've
yep.
seen those. Those are cute. Yeah, those are good. I'll have to remember that one. Well, you have to have the intermingling of like the fun part of the job and then, you know, the serious part of it.
Yeah, you know, putting Vaseline on each other's door handles and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
you're-
Fun, good
it's
fun.
fun.
Yeah, yep. Well, and I often hear of law enforcement as like my brothers and sisters. So, when you have, you know, when a majority of us go to work, we're not necessarily putting our life on the line where you are. So that's where law enforcement is. So that's probably where that's coming
I'm still
from.
brothers.
Okay.
My wife and I went out and had a late lunch, early supper Saturday. Retired law enforcement guy works here. We got done eating, gave him a big hug. Love you.
Oh, yeah.
Be safe.
Yeah. Wow.
You know. So it's still.
Yeah. Like the military.
He is ex-military.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you know, so yeah.
Sure. That bond.
Yep.
There's a bond there of protection and
Yep.
love and concern.
And one of my best friends, you know, give him a hug, be safe. He goes south in the winter now. When I go to his place, usually the first thing he does, he hands me a pistol. Because I don't want to take it on the flight and all that stuff. And
Oh, sure.
so he just knows. We show up at his place. Here you go.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I'll give it back to you in a couple days.
Oh, yeah. Unwritten, just uncommunicated words that
Yep.
you just kind of can relate with each
Yep.
other with.
Yep.
Do you miss it?
I miss aspects. The fun stuff.
The fun stuff.
But the, you know, the crim sexes, the homicides, that kind of stuff. No, no, don't miss that at all.
I always think of like little children.
Yep.
That would be the toughest.
That was probably the straw that broke the camel's back right there. My last one that I had worked. I said,
Children.
I'm done.
You just knew it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a great case. Everything was good. You knew they were lying. And I'm just like, I had 20 years of this.
So when you say you have a great case, you're looking at it from the perspective of like, it's a sealed case. You're going to be able to take this one and put them away.
Yep.
Put that
Put them
perpetrator.
away again.
Oh, again, okay, repeat.
Yep.
Yeah, that hurts when you knew it and, yeah. Is there anything in the judicial world or the wheel of justice that you can see that could or should be changed or looked at or reevaluated from your perspective? I know that's a pretty broad question.
You know, I think in our area we have good judges.
Okay.
Well, they stole all our county attorneys and made them judges.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're
yeah.
good judges.
Yeah.
And but maybe it's the pretrial release. You know, they get their bail or something, and they can go out and commit more crimes and get locked back up while they still have this case pending.
Oh, sure,
So
okay.
they're out on bail or whatever, or
They can be a
RPR.
reoffending
Yep.
while they have a case.
Yep.
Because the case is, the load is so heavy with the court
And
system.
it's in the works, or
Okay.
there's, they just, well, like during COVID and stuff,
Sure.
everything was backed up. And then, and then they go to prison or do whatever, do their time. And then they're on probation,
Sure.
parole, whatever. We have some really good agents, and we have some, it's just like everybody.
Putting in their time.
Yep.
Sure, yeah. Well, what do they say? Delayed justice is denied justice? Or something like that?
Maybe.
Delayed justice is justice denied is what I've heard in the past too. So, yeah, well, it's just everything's bogged down.
Yep. We don't
System
have
is.
enough people to help the system. The court cases are overloaded, and
That's a huge undertaking. I mean, that's why you were so hesitant at answering that when I said, is there anything that you can see? But it's just the backlog.
yeah.
And then the offenders can just keep reoffending during that duration and then add more
And then,
to it.
there are innocent people out there. And, they may be the ones sitting in jail that can't afford bail or don't get released or whatever. I tend to lean the other direction. That,
Sure, right.
and if it was a case I put together, I want to prosecute it fully. If it was a case that I kind of caught, okay, we've got some wiggle room here. But, there's different ways.
So, I have my personal experience that it was in the judicial system by charging my dad out for sexual abuse. That's a position that you that don't want to be a part of. That's an extremely long, drawn out, hearing after hearing type of thing. And then in the end, this is, it's almost 20 years ago now that this took place. And, he was acquitted. And I believed in truth. I believed that truth would prevail. I didn't have a doubt. I thought, he'll get the help that he needs, and, we'll be a happy family again. And it didn't turn out that way.
I think a lot of the community backed you and supported you. There was some issues that happened during the trial that a lot of people still doesn't sit well with a lot of people.
But, so that's why I have such just a respect for law enforcement, because I had to work closely with investigators. I didn't necessarily know how it was all going at that time. I was very, I was very emotionally, I was a mess emotionally and mentally at that time. But looking back on hindsight, I'm really good friends with them to this day, very good friends. And there's a connection there. So
With the investigators?
with the investigators, with the law enforcement, the DA, who now is a judge, like you said. So from my perspective, I have a great deal of respect for law enforcement because I saw such an intimate job, or the environment that those, when they go to work, that they're connected and they put their heart into the job. And I appreciate that. And from my standpoint, and I never use the word victim. I dislike that word a lot. So, but it is what it is. I'm a survivor, I like to say. When you put your hat on the judicial system, hang your hat on that, sometimes you have to be a little bit careful because, yes, it is the law of the land. It is our judicial system. It's the best we have. But it's not always going to be serving justice.
No.
And that's my little tidbit of information from, I've never been in law enforcement before, but I've worked very closely.
But you've had good interaction with us.
I had good interaction, and the heart was there. And because it didn't go the way that it was supposed to go the way truth was, it doesn't always necessarily mean that, obviously, I mean, truth did not prevail in this situation because he was, he was acquitted. But it made me who I am today. And I'm proud of who I am today for standing up and standing out and saying what was right regardless. So I know we've talked a lot about from your perspective, but sometimes law enforcement needs to hear it from the other point and perspective. And I wanted to bring that up and let you know that just because something didn't turn out the way that we all wanted it, doesn't mean that, I mean, obviously justice was not served. End of story. It wasn't. But
was it?
it was, because I will tell you, and this is where I was going to be going to it, I got to stand up and say it, what happened, and my perpetrator had to hear it in that setting. And I didn't know it, but afterwards it set me free. I didn't get the justice the way I wanted it, but I actually indirectly did, because I'm fine. I mean, I healed through it all. I had to talk about it. I had to bring it up. So I wanted to share that with you, because sometimes when law enforcement, they just go to work and they just, put on their shoes and belt and stuff for the day, that they have to, from time to time, be reminded that you might not have served it justice, but the people that I worked with, they changed my life. And I don't know if they know the level of it.
Probably not.
Probably not. Because it really, I don't want to use the word saved me, but they heard me, they validated, they believed me, and we walked through that together. And, I mean, when we got that not guilty verdict, I went up to the DA's office and I vomited. I mean, I was just on my knees because I believed in truth, and it didn't happen. But that was 20 years ago, and I'm thankful. Honestly, to this day, I can truthfully say I'm thankful that happened, because it's made me who I am today, and I'm
Very strong.
I'm very strong. I am. I'm a little bit humble, so I try to, I'm not arrogant by any means, but I'm very strong, and I think through things, I process stuff, and I'm proud of that, so.
And you're successful with what you've got going on.
Yeah.
And your other projects as well.
Yeah. But also, again, I mean, this Real Feel Insights wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't be going down this avenue had I not had this experience. So experiences sometimes are there at the time you think it's the worst thing you could ever possibly be going through, and it is. I'm not not saying it's not. I'm just saying that sometimes going through those really tough, ugly times actually are just kind of toughening you up and getting you stronger. So keep going, keep believing in yourself. I'm kind of sharing this to other viewers too, that are listening to this. And also I want to make sure that that from our perspective, that just because it doesn't always work out the way that you think it should, you helped, law enforcement helped. That's why it's very critical to sometimes communicate that.
I have another incident. They tell us, anywhere between 5 and 10 years in law enforcement, you're going to go through a slump.
Oh, okay.
Well, I hit it. I was about 7, 8 years in. I got out.
Okay.
I got out for 6 months.
Okay. When you say a slump, like
I'm done. I'm done.
Oh, you were done. Okay.
Yep, I was done. But my old boss said, no, you're not.
Okay.
Take a leave of absence.
Okay.
You're hit.
Sure.
You're in a rut.
Sure.
And he said, just take a leave of absence. I'm like, no, I am done. And I took another job. And one night a gal showed up at our house. And my wife said, she's like, is Mike here? And my wife said, no.
And you weren't there?
I wasn't there.
Okay.
No, I was working.
Did your wife know who this
No,
was?
not a clue.
Okay.
So I get home. She's like, some young gal stopped over for okay. Well, a few weeks later, I was actually home, and the gal stopped in. Here she was a suicidal person.
At that moment?
No,
Or?
prior to.
Impact. And okay.
And she had heard that I'd gotten out of law enforcement, and she came and thanked me for saving her life.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Oh, I've got chills. I've got chills.
And
oh, wow.
that was great.
Yeah.
You know, because after I dealt with her and did our thing, you know, I didn't know her from Adam. You know, I just, but, you know, I had lived in town at the time, and
Sure.
everybody knew, you know, you got
Sure.
a squad car parked
Right.
in your yard.
Right.
And
Right.
for her to show up and thank me, and knowing that I had gotten out of law enforcement, but I 6 months later came back to my boss, and he's like, "I told you so." Yeah, we got a job for you.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he
So,
found
so
a
that's
job for me.
that's normal, that you
Well,
just
they-
kind of get to your.
They
like
had
a
told us
breaking
that in
point.
college,
Okay.
that, you know, you're probably going to hit a slump.
Interesting. Wow.
And,
Yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
work through it.
Wow. So when she came to tell you thank you, you saved her life.
Yep.
It wasn't something like, you know, you.
Yeah,
Saved
I know. But,
her.
I mean, we got called because she was suicidal.
Wow. And you saved her life.
Yep, and, but, you know, just talk to
Wow.
her.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's a normal person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're all normal people.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is.
Yeah, yeah. Right. You mean, I know what you're talking about. When you put on your uniform, you have that uniform. I mean, you're.
So when I used to talk to kids, you know, these little kids, kindergartners, first graders, they're just, oh,
Right.
policemen.
Right.
You know, I used to go in and talk to these kids, and I'm like, this is just what I wear for work.
Sure. Right.
I go home, I have 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a dad, I'm an uncle, I'm a husband. I go home, I put my shorts on,
Mm-hmm.
I watch the twins lose. You know, that's,
Right. So when you say normal, that's what you mean by normal.
Yep,
Just you're
yep.
a regular.
I'm a
Just,
regular
yep,
person. This is
you're
my
the next
job.
door neighbor, and
You know,
yeah. But
we-
once you put the uniform on, then it takes it.
yep,
Yep. Okay.
And I try to, you know, just try to be normal with
Sure.
the kids too. You know, I wanted them to see us as good people. You know, and relating like baseball or football, you know, the
Right.
Twins and
Yeah.
Vikings.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, they once you tell them that I have kids, I have a wife, they're like, really? Yeah. You know,
cute.
unless it was a
Yeah.
niece or a nephew
Right,
in the class,
right.
they're like, oh, well, Uncle
Yeah,
Mike.
yeah. Well, and even as an adult, for me too, you know, I have friends, you know, I might be out having a glass of wine or something with them, and then the next time I see them, they're in uniform. And then it's an entirely different, you know, a dialogue. You just have
Or
that
be
level of
uptown, I'll see a judge
respect.
or whatever. Hey, how's it going? You know, I'll call them by name. Or every once in a while, I'll go, Your Honor.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Just to throw it out there.
Right, yeah.
But-
Well, and like you said, we're all just, we put our pants on the same way, no matter, you know, what we do or who we are. So, and we have, in your position, you have a heart, you have feelings. You just want to explain that we're just,
We cry,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
We see
it
some
hurts.
stuff that,
and it hurts.
I do miss walking up and down the street,
Oh, sure,
talking to the business owners,
Oh,
and going
yeah.
out having lunch and things.
Yeah.
Going to the school,
sure, yeah.
that kind of thing.
Interacting with the kids and things.
Yep. But, yeah, life's better now, though.
Little calmer,
Well,
a different calm,
yeah, it's a different stress now.
Sure.
It's,
yeah,
you know, winter's my busy season now.
sure.
But
Yeah. Do you do you hear people's problems sometimes and maybe not now, but like back then, and think that's like first world problems? I mean, I deal with like third world problems daily. I think
Yeah.
you'll be okay. I have some nurses in my family, and you know, their poor kids, they get cut and they're like, throw some dirt on it. And
we drank from the garden hose.
didn't die. Yeah. So I'm sure that there is probably some things I often think about, and I hate to use this because I have friends that their name is Karen, but so, I didn't start this. I didn't dub this way of saying it, but like, did you run into like Karens?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine having to deal with somebody that has a very, very small problem.
Your little issue is nothing
Right.
compared to the big picture.
Right. Yeah, but it's very big to them.
Yep.
So how you can't make them feel like they're not significant. So you have to sometimes choose your words very wisely to make them feel important.
I made the mistake of telling a person to have a good day after I wrote them a speeding ticket.
Okay.
I tell everybody to have a good day.
Sure.
She filed a complaint.
Oh, like you were being sarcastic.
Yes. So then after that, and it was all on video, have a better day.
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, have a better day.
I mean, I tell people to have a good day
All the time. I do too, yeah. Great
'Cause, you know,
afternoon.
business.
Yeah, right, yeah. She filed a complaint against you because
Yes.
she thought you were being sarcastic, kind of like, have a good day.
Yep, and
kinda
I
like
was
that.
working safe and sober back then, so I was out pounding traffic.
Sure, yeah,
And
yeah,
my sheriff was like, well, whatever.
yeah, right. That would be, yeah,
But that was just in my mind is
right, yeah,
you see
yeah,
people in the
yeah,
store, have a good day.
right, yeah.
And so yeah, then I had to really,
Reword that correctly.
Yeah.
Well, it is a little awkward because, you just gave somebody a ticket. It's like,
Yeah.
thanks, what do you say? Like, thanks, you have a great day, I mean, even from our person, the person
I didn't think
that's
about
speeding.
it back in the day, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, have a better day.
Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
I still use that line.
Sure, yeah.
We had one poor customer. I was talking with him on the phone yesterday, and he was not having a good day. A lot of issues going
Sure,
on.
right,
Broke
yeah.
this, broke that, broke
Yeah.
that, and
So he
and-
was having a bad issue. Was he ready to make you not have a good
No,
day too?
no, no,
Like that?
no.
Okay,
No,
okay.
he's like, yeah, it's just bad. He said it started at 10:30 this morning, and I'm like,
Okay.
he goes, Mike, I hope you have a better day than I'm having. I said, I hope you have a better day too.
That was cordial.
Yeah.
That was a good way to do
oh,
that. Yeah,
I love it when people come into the office.
Yeah, yeah,
Or talking,
yeah,
a lot of people
sure.
talking on the phone with them.
yeah.
I love our customers.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, you have a good service. Well, you like to serve. I mean, you got a good service character.
We get some of them. I don't put a coffee pot in our office because,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
someone would be, then I'd be talking
Yeah,
to them too.
yeah,
I
all
mean,
day. Yeah,
but
you
it's
wouldn't get
pretty
your work
easy
done.
to kill a half hour, 45
Sure,
minutes
right.
talking to a
Yeah.
customer.
Well, sometimes you have to though. That gives it that personal touch, and you don't have to either. I mean, you want to. It's just kind of nice, but you have time management. That's
Yep.
what I call it.
Yep.
Time
And I
management.
have my seasons.
Sure. Right. When you're really busy.
Yep. Yep.
And then
And then there's times where,
sure.
yeah, I'm just gonna stop at your house.
Sure, yeah, because you're now in the propane, you retired from law enforcement
Yep.
and now you're in the propane.
Yeah, propane and fuel.
In fuel business now, so, yeah, now you get to, don't have to put that belt on, you just
Yeah,
get to,
yeah.
put on your,
I still deal with the same people,
sure, yeah, that's kind of nice, yeah,
different aspect.
yep, yep,
But it's nice. So I used to fight fire for the DNR also.
okay,
And so we would go out cruising,
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I and the kids, or we'd be going camping. And I'm like, I had a fire there. I did a traffic stop here.
Sure,
We've had a
yeah.
fire there. Now it's my son and I
Oh.
riding with my wife. Or that's our customer. That's
sure,
our.
yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
I wish there was a fire.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yep,
and it's different because then we'll see people uptown and now they know me as their supplier.
Sure,
they're for
right.
fuel or propane
Yeah.
or whatever, and it's not it's that cop.
oh,
That's my propane guy.
yeah,
You know, so it's kind of fun that
right,
way.
little different,
Yep.
yeah, little different. It's kind of like you've had two lives in one.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, totally different, and then now,
Yeah. Well, and when I got out, I got called back, kind of, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
I did a little stint at a big box store for about 6 months, and then I got called back from a previous employer that I actually retired from.
with law enforcement,
Yep.
yep.
And I got called back for COVID. And
Sure,
we
right.
did. Was a certified emergency manager through our state and stuff, and so they called me back and said, "Hey, will you contract with us during COVID to run our emergency operations
Oh,
center?"
sure.
So I contracted with them for a year. So I got to go back in. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't completely out right away. Still got to interact with all the guys and have fun.
Yeah,
And feel like we did some good things for
Sure.
our people during COVID, and then after that, I'm like, my contract's running out. I got to go find a real job.
yeah,
here,
real. Yeah, different, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you had a real one, it's just a
Yeah.
little bit different one, a longer one, more stationary type of
Yep.
thing, so. Well, you've been there now with the propane company
So
for,
I just had our fourth winter.
okay, so,
Yeah, the first two were, oof, and then the last two were nothing.
okay, right, yeah,
We didn't have any snow. We didn't have but we had 2 days of cold weather.
right, yeah,
26
yeah.
below, 28 below.
Yeah, well, I was happy.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I want to tell you, I am so thankful for you coming on board. This was a tough subject, to talk about. There's some things that, are very dark in that law enforcement world. They really are, and it's tough. Tough to bring that stuff up. So thank you very much. Want you to know that we appreciate you and thank you for your service that you gave to our community. And is there anything else that you want to end with?
Oh,
Is there anything
thank you.
else?
This is
Yeah.
great to talk.
Well, and real feel insights. I mean, this is real feel situations. This is what it's, all about. So thank you for being real on the Real Feel Insight podcast. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.